What's up, with Dr. Will James, Dr. Will James Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that bell so that you get notifications every time I upload a new clip. So today we are looking at a reaction video from Stevie Knight. He's actually reacting to a video from Steve Crowder. Steve Crowder went into a black barber shop and they were having a discussion surrounding black fatigue. Funny thing is, I reached out to Steve Knight and I reached out to Steve Crowder, DM'd them, messaged them, wrote in their comments, trying to set up, a discussion with them. I think they're running. I think they know who I am, but they run from people who can easily debunk, the silly stuff that they talk about and stuff they post, which is what I'm going to do here today. So let's just get into this clip.
Steven Crowder pulling up to a black barbershop, apparently talking about black fatigue. Hey, bro. But like Crowder is out here on a rampage since they took that boy Kirk out, man. So we definitely got to tap in and see what this is about. Let's get it.
Everybody's from different places, different backgrounds. Some of us from certain backgrounds know, like, running your mouth too much in a certain space can get your ass whooped.
Yeah.
Like, you free to say what you want, you're just not free from the consequences. Like, the consequences that come with you saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And that's where we all have responsibilities in what we say and when we say it.
Yeah. The problem, though, too, and that's, I was kind of talking more domestically, the problem with that idea is a lot of people are offended by different things. Mm-hmm. And so people get their ass whooped for something they didn't say, right? That's the real thing. I don't know if you guys were following the stabbing there on that train in Charlotte, Irina Zarutska. Last time I was asking where you guys thought we were, as far as in the country relation. Like, have you guys heard of the term black fatigue? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys know what that means?
Since the last time you came, that's become a thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's just become a recent thing.
And do you know what it means?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask that.
It's a term that's being used by people in the white community, by and large, again, saying they feel like they've been victimized and they're tired of taking that shit. That was a girl who was dying alone in public. And that was a guy who was let out 14 times, including violent crimes in the name of racial justice, right? He didn't have to post bail. He didn't have to appear back in court. This is not the first time he's assaulted someone.
How do we know that was in the interest of racial justice as opposed to just being
because the judge said it.
A fucked up attempt at justice, period.
Yeah.
Like, the legal system has its flaws.
Yeah.
And people have been making complaints about that.
Right. The legal system has gone soft on crime several instances in recent years with, them trying to restructure the criminal justice system. We have too many people incarcerated, no bail policies. That's a systemic issue, and it wasn't for racial justice. There's no proof of that. And he's talking about some random judge who said it, which I don't even believe unless I have to see the judge say it, because people like him lie so much. Just like Charlie Kirk, they used to lie all the time just to fit their argument.
For decades, right? But that's just, to me, that's a mental health thing more than it's a black and white thing.
Well, I'll tell you why, because white people are saying it now.
Right.
Not just white people are saying, hey, we're in the city.
Makes it a bigger thing.
Well, because, white people are 12 times as likely to be killed by a black person any other way around. I'm just going to shoot you straight.
That's a lie. So just to prove that that's a lie, let's look. He said that white people are 12 times as likely to get killed by a black person than the other way around. Notice there's no source. He never gives a source. So let's just look, because he never gives a source. We're going to look at some data. We can't see that. How do we? Let me see. I hope you guys can see this. Zoom in on your screen or whatever you got to do, because we're going to look at this. Does this make it better? Nope. All right. He said white people are 12 times as likely to get killed by a black person than the other way around. So this is the FBI data table for murder. in 2019, which is 5 years ago because we're in 2025. We won't have this data until the end of the year. And they go like 2 to 3 months into the year before you get the 2025 data. So this says, according to this, and we're going to pay attention and break this data down. The race of the offender, Black or African American, 566 Black or African Americans killed a white victim. That's what it says. Right? I'm moving the cursor in there. White victim. And then 566. I hope you all can see that. You can zoom in, like I said. So 566 Black people killed a white person. Then it says 246 white people killed a Black person. So in numbers, that's 320 people. That's 2.3%. Right? Where did he get 12 times more likely from? Is he saying because of the population? Because he didn't say that. If you're going to say, oh, well, Black people only make up 13% of the population and white people make up around 66 to 70% of the population, and there's still more of those, then you would have to say that. You would have to say that. But there's a lot of things to break down when you look at this data. But again, that's 2.3%. These are numbers. This is 2019. If you scroll down and you look at ethnicity of victim, where it says Hispanic or Latino, and then it says white, 759 of these victims were white, Hispanic, or Latino. Don't you think that that's important to factor in? Because only 177 of these victims were Black, Hispanic, or Latino. But 759 identified as Hispanic or Latino, but then also put white as their race. So now you have a large portion of these people who could be from, we don't know where they're from. They could be from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, El Salvador, Mexico, anywhere in Latin America or any Hispanic country, because we know Latino is geography, so anywhere in Latin America, and then Hispanic is language, so from any Spanish-speaking country, and those people identified their race as white. $759 of them out of 3,299 victims, basically 3,300. And 566 of those were done by a Black person. But he won't tell you to factor in, and he doesn't, that's why he likes to go against, they like to go against the ignorant and people who won't question these things and look at the data. Also, there's more, a lot of people are unallowed to buy a spouse, and there's more Black men married to white women than there are white men married to Black women. That also matters. So he doesn't even go over the context of these crimes or anything like that. And he can say, well, the context doesn't matter. The main thing that we're focused on here is race. But you're also more likely to get killed by your spouse than a stranger. Am I supposed to trust a stranger more than my spouse? Like, you see why context and everything matters. I'm around my spouse every day. You have a relationship. They have a motive. If they catch you cheating, they suspect you cheating. They're angry at you for whatever reason. You deal with them on a daily basis. You don't deal with, the same stranger on a daily basis. Aside from, maybe a coworker or, if you go to school and you see certain people, but then those people aren't really like strangers, you know, you get what I'm saying. So this is data that needs to be focused. Furthermore, this data doesn't tell you that Black people are the most exonerated group for homicide. That's one. Two, he won't tell you how this data is collected. They collect data from the UCR, from the Uniform Crime Report. These aren't convictions. Even on the bottom right here where it says note, it says this table is based on incidents where some information about the offender is known by law enforcement. Therefore, when the offender age, sex, race, and ethnicity are all reported as unknown, these data are excluded from the table. Some information about the offender is known by law enforcement. But these aren't all convictions. And even if they were convictions, we would then have to break that down. Representation in court, money, you know, what is the socioeconomic status of the accused? Because we know how the criminal justice system plays that. But these aren't even convictions. That's not how the UCR does there. They get their data off of police agencies around America who have turned in their information of reports. So it could be a case that's not even solved. They can have a witness that say, hey, oh, when that guy was shot or stabbed, I saw the perpetrator and the perpetrator was a Black guy. And then they put it in this and say, oh, the person who killed such and such was a Black male, when they don't have proof. That's how this stuff is reported. He knows that, but won't say it. And I'm talking about Crowder. I don't know if Knight knows that, because he just follows these people like Kirk and Knight. But this is the truth about this data. So I'll exit out of that. I hope you can see it. But again, everything I'm saying is fact. And I will sit down with Crowder. I will sit down with Knight. We need to have real discussions. They play games and they lie. He said 12 times more likely. Based on what? What data? What source? Point us to it so we can break this down. I'm on the FBI website right now. UCR, FBI.gov. This is the Uniform Crime Report. That's how they collect data. These aren't even convictions. So that's why I want to know his source. Like I said, either way, there's a threat to validity. Even if these were convictions, you know, we would have to look at the socioeconomic status of the offender, look at the context of the case, the data, because what they never say is Black suspects are the most exonerated for homicides. So then what? What about that fact? Let's get back to this clip now. I would obliterate both of them, Knight and Crowder. They never want to see anyone who knows what they're doing.
It's not even close.
Where?
Across the country.
Where? Like not in
the United States. I mean, we're not talking about Ghana.
In like,
yeah.
What I'm saying is, in white communities or in quote unquote so-called white communities,
across the country, the rate is a Black man or person, because most murders men. There are very few female murders. 12 times more likely to kill a white person the other way around. And then you look at the
based on what? Because all right, we just looked. It's 2.3% according to the 2019 data by the FBI to UCR. What source are you using? What do you mean by 12%? 12 times more likely. Are you saying because of the population difference in the numbers or what? And again, someone needs to slow him down and say, hey, what's your source? Let's unpack this. People like him run from me because that's what I would do. And I would get down to the truth, and it will expose his whole agenda.
Average amount of times that someone in this country is arrested before they're brought in for killing, charged with murder. Do you know how many times they're arrested on average before they murder? 11 times.
Once again, the justice system's got its flaws, and people have been complaining about that for years. We spend more time trying to fix that than trying to complain about the white versus black of it all.
Well, I think, just like I was trying to listen to all communities last time, I think this is something that's unavoidable. If this community, if enough white people get pissed off, they're going, look, we're living in New York now, we're getting killed in record numbers, or Detroit, 12 times the rate. And our system, 3 strikes in California.
That's a lie. And what is he saying? Enough people get pissed. What is he saying? What are you alluding to? What are you whistling at? And that's a lie. We're living in New York, Detroit, we're getting killed at 12 times the rate. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
California, right? That was a 3-strike policy. The reason that was changed, they said it was racist. Crime went down in black communities 30%. But now people are looking at their cities going, this is a fucking hellscape. And the murders skyrocketed because people said in the name of racial justice, like 3 felonies, you're out.
Because crime is crime, right? But crime is usually going to be higher concentrated in areas where there's high poverty. So typically the areas that's high poverty in this country are areas with people with this color skin. So that's why you're going to have that. That's why I said those numbers could be skewed and made to manipulate to look like, oh yeah, that's why I said in
not at 12 times the rate.
In suburban neighborhoods, white people are not in danger, and that's
he's living on the 12 times the rate thing, and he hasn't provided a source, nothing to substantiate that claim. No one made him prove it in that barbershop. And unpack that first, because that's what he just keeps living on. And that's a lie. Where do you get that from?
That's what this kind of fear mongering tells them, is that you're in danger because you're 12 times more likely to get killed by a black person. You live in ain't nobody coming after you. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody tripping on you. But these people are just as scared as the other folks.
They are if they get on a bus.
Not necessarily.
They are if they get on a train.
That lady wasn't in danger because that man was black. That lady was in danger because that man was crazy.
Nope.
That's a good point. That dude was crazy. He did that unprovoked. That was ridiculous. What about Dylan Roof, who went into a black church and shot 9 black people while they were praying? What about that? What about the other dude who went into the grocery store up in Buffalo, New York, and shot at all black people? Are you kidding me? And you're talking about this one incident? Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, he shouldn't have did that. But that was more, I think he was mentally ill too. But we can point out like racially provoked cases where white people have unalived black people. So what are you talking about, Crowder?
Man was mentally insane.
But why was he back in
family members? He had his own family members call the hospital to try to get him committed. He told his sister he killed that woman because he thought she was trying to read his mind.
Yep.
That's
why was he let out, though?
That
and I'm not saying it's because he's black.
Yeah,
I'm saying people look at it, though. The judge.
All facts, and he's jumping over the mentally ill part now.
I'm a part of black fatigue.
He's insane, right? We agree.
That's not a black and white issue.
He was deemed not fit to stand trial, right?
Right.
Now,
he should have been institutionalized.
Right. The IOU policy, meaning you don't have to pay bail. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to stay here until you're actually convicted. You just say you'll come back.
Right, which is messed up.
Yeah, the judge, Teresa Stokes, black woman, said, well, this is about racial justice. We need to be softer on crime. So that's her reasoning. That's why he was out. And you can find dozens of examples.
That's her misguided reasoning.
And that's policy.
He just pointed to one judge and acted like she was the judge presiding over all of his cases and saying, oh, that's her reasoning, and that's why he was out. You just said the dude was arrested like 14 times. And I think it was probably more than that. What percentage of judges in America are black, let alone a black woman? That's a systemic thing. And that's why he was out. It wasn't because of a black judge. Cut it out. Matter of fact, we can look. What percentage judges in American courts are black? This says as of August 1st, 2024, 11.8% of Article 3 federal judges are black. So, like, we know it's not going to be a lot. We know the chances of it being because of a black judge is a slim chance. So, like, come on, be serious.
But that's systemic, though, right?
That's not representative of a whole.
It's not. It's not. No. And look, we always have to say not all. Right. Like, not all white people wear MAGA hats and are dumbass pieces of racist shit. But we have all been accused of racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia.
Brother is either not listening or doesn't understand what Stephen is saying. All Stephen is saying is that the reason why black has anything to do with this particular conversation is because of these racist legal policies that some judge allowed that led to this particular individual being free because he was black. Right?
You're not listening. What are you talking about? You make no sense. What are you talking about? He just wants to agree. That's why people call you a bootlicker. Shut up. That's why Abba destroyed you.
Well, he's not hearing that. He just hears an attack on black people. Stephen's not attacking black people. He's attacking this system that has resulted into criminals that should not be walking the streets, but are because they are black. If his stats are true, right? And I don't know nothing about that particular city or whatever judge, but usually Crowder comes with the facts. But
look at him. He doesn't even fact check them. He just believe in it. Usually Crowder comes with the facts. No, what facts did he come with? What are you talking about?
It's one of them cases where it wouldn't even matter. Stephen could have a platter of all the evidence and facts necessary to, justify his stance, but they're not trying to hear it because they're talking from a place of emotion, talking about these other things that have nothing to do with what Stephen's talking about. They're talking past each other.
Well, what I'm saying is black fatigue is white people going, you know what? I know I'm not racist. And I know that we're dealing with record crime, and I know that I'm more at risk. And they have negative interactions, and they're constantly told that they're not allowed to voice their fucking opinion because they're white. And if those people get pissed off, like that's where we actually could end up with some kind of, I'm telling you, I see this brewing. I see people who were milquetoast white suburban who are becoming actually racist. Now, not all of them, but I've seen people actually become racist because they get mugged, their store gets looted, and nothing gets done. They're going, and if I say something, it's turned into a racing. I'm telling you what, that's where it's coming from. At what point do we have a talk and go like, okay, let's reform justice, but we have to be honest as to why it was reformed in the first place. This guy, it's not even the only one. It's every 3 days someone's being offed.
Yeah, but at the same time, let's transfer that over to, there's a lot of unsafe things in this world. Like getting mugged by a black person is not the paramount unsafe thing. There's school shootings, there's road rage, there's all of that shit.
Yep.
And the primary people that commit a lot of those are people who don't have this skin.
No.
So if switch it over, if black people say, well, we getting fed up and we tired of all these school shootings and all of these road rage and all that, who do we say something to? Who hears our voice?
And when does the white?
This is not going to go anywhere. This is going. Black folks are not here to listen at all because we're talking about this particular topic. But now he wants to pull the goalpost to get white folks to take responsibility on for things that they are guilty of, and that can be done. But we got to talk about this. We're at this particular juncture, the whole black fatigue situation. But now he's trying to pull it over to white fatigue. But just to entertain this conversation, let's go to chat. Right. How often do black men commit murder per capita compared two white men, because all it is white and black. You know, I'm sure Hispanics, Asians are there, but it's pretty much from white and black, because white are the majority, so they're going to be responsible for a lot of murders, but blacks are only 13% of the population that are responsible for a lot of murders. So that's why I'm not even including the other races that attempt murder as well, because they're not even relevant in the conversation.
They are relevant in the conversation because I already looked, and it depends on if someone is a white Hispanic or black Hispanic. It's not just that ethnicity bracket right there is very significant, because Hispanic and Latino culture is a culture within itself, and then they come in and they don't even know their own race. I know because I teach several Hispanic and Latino students, and they don't know their race when you ask them their race. They say that their race is Hispanic, Latino, or they say whatever country they're from is their race. That's their nationality, but they don't know what their race is. They don't know the difference. It's just like many people don't know the difference between race, ethnicity, nationality. And that's factored in with this data. So how can you say it's just black and white? You're ignorant. You don't know what you're talking about. And you don't make sense.
How often do black men commit murder per capita compared to white men in America? And how many of these murders take place a year on average? So according to CDC, in 2023, there were 22,830 homicide deaths in the U.S. That works out to about 6.8 per 100,000 people. In FBI 2019, the murder rate was 5 per 100,000. The more detailed analysis for 2019, the U.S. saw about 367,827 homicides in a total over that span. So a ballpark average around 20 to 25 murders per year in recent years. Offender race and per capita by race. This is much harder to nail down precisely because data on the race of the offender are less reliable or are less reliably collected. There's missing data, and there's difference between arrest charges and confirmed offenders. But here is what the data suggests. In 2019, for homicides in which the race.
Look how fast he's reading that. He's not reading what he wants to read. He's reading it. So he's not getting what he wants to get from it. So he's reading through it fast. That just said this data is hard to collect. These are not confirmed convictions. But let's see what he takes from this as he keeps reading. Let's see what he does.
Of the offender was known. 55.9% of offenders were black or African American. 41.1% were white. And 3% were other races. Right.
So 55% of, based on the data, 55% of the perpetrators were black, 41% were white. So that's 14% more likely overall to commit a homicide. And you could say, oh yeah, black people make up a smaller percent of the population, 13% compared to 66%. So, oh yeah, there's more violence going on there, But you also have to look at the systemic issues, because socioeconomic status ties into it. And around like 25% of homicides are connected to other crimes, like burglaries, robberies, things like that include socioeconomic status, money. When people are trying to commit theft or a robbery or a burglary, home invasions, looking for whatever they're looking for, doing whatever they're doing, and then it turns into a homicide. That also matters.
Just that alone, 13% of the population in 2019, granted 6 years ago, but responsible for 55.9% offenders. 41.1% were white. And what percentage of America is white? Percentage of America is white. I really should nail it down to white men and black men, because it's going to make the percentage even smaller. What percentage of America is white men? White men make up about 30% of the population. What percentage of America is black men? 5.7 to 6.3. So 30% of America is white men, which account for 41% of the murders. 5 2.5% of America is black men, who account for 56% of the murders. It's crazy. So per capita, it's wild. So to convert that to per capita rates by race, one also needs the population of those racial groups. As of recent estimate, non-Hispanic blacks people make up 13.7% of population. Non-Hispanic white people make up a larger share. Given that if black people commit more than half of the murders while being 13 or 14% of the population, that would mean that black offenders' murder rate equals 25.6 people per 100,000. White offender murder rate equals 4.14 per 100,000. This is 6 to 7 times more likely. But the percentages are going to be different because you have to focus on men, because men commit the most murders. So
he says 6 to 7 times more likely by his own analysis. And he heard Crowder say 12. And he's still going to try to fix it for Crowder to be right. And he keeps saying, oh, well, we should just focus on males because males commit most. No, if you're doing a whole number, you have to look at the males and females and the unknown as well with the homicide rate. That's how you analyze data if you're going to analyze it.
It's a lot, bro. 20 to 25,000 murders a year, right? How many people die from mass shootings a year? And the reason why I'm putting that, because this was Buddy's knee-jerk response to Crowder's assessment of the whole black fatigue conversation, right? So let's look at that. Using the gun violence definition, 4 or more people shot, regardless of fatality. 722 people died in such incidents in 2023, right? And not to minimize people dying, bro, but we're comparing hundreds. I even give you 1,000. I give you 1,000, right? Rounded way up. 1,000 people die in a given year compared to 20 to 25,000 people dying of homicide, right? Which black people are responsible for the majority, right? And we need to talk about it, bro. Like, we can't move the goalposts and talk about something else when we're talking about this. We can leave.
We do need to talk about that because there's a lot of black violence. There's a lot going on in the communities, and I'm not afraid to talk about that. It does need to be addressed. When I see violence going on in my communities, I speak out against that, and that needs to be stopped. And I hate to see that. But I don't like when people lie. Be honest with the data. Be honest with the numbers. Be honest with where this information comes from. Again, be honest about the exonerations and all of that as well. It all matters. Don't try to just, throw some numbers out there that aren't truthful, that are dishonest, and not tell all of the information so that people can have, a firm look, a firm understanding of it. Because in most neighborhoods, you got, some bad apples. If a neighborhood has, 10,000 people, and then you have, 300 gangbangers, it seems like a lot. And it is a lot, but out of 10,000, it's not. That's less than 1%. So that's what I'm saying. You have these bad apples in a neighborhood that and 300 can destroy a neighborhood. But when they make it seem like it's the entire black community that's just rotten, that's where it gets me. Now, if it were me, I'm always on the path, and my messaging is to get rid of the 300 that don't know what they're doing. Like, if you destroying my community, if you're selling drugs, if you are committing burglaries, thefts, armed robberies, car thefts, carjackings, whatever, you need to be locked up, and we need to deal with you. We also need to put systems in place to provide people with, opportunities, and they need to do a better job at reducing the recidivism rate. They need to do a better job, getting people adjusted to life back in the real world when they come out of jail or come out of prison. There's a lot of things that need to be done systemically. Bail reform was done for socioeconomic status reasons, not for racial reasons. It was done so that people who couldn't afford, bail and attorneys and all of that didn't have to sit in a jail while they wait for court. Now, with certain crimes, if someone gets locked up for a violent crime, you know, and there's a certain amount of evidence, I believe they should be able to stay locked up. But when we look at cases like Khalif Browder, who spent 3 years on Rikers Island, a young black teenager who was 16 years of age and was accused of stealing a backpack, and then the witness was nowhere to be found. The victim was nowhere to be found. The victim had like caught a flight, went to Mexico or whatever, and was nowhere to be found. And then you got a kid doing 3 years on Rikers Island because he can't afford a bail. And I forgot how low his bail was. Let me look that up. I don't want to be wrong. How long was Khalif Browder bail? His bail was $3,000, and he couldn't get out. $3,000. So that's why bail reform is in place. It's not because of race.
This, we can go to the mass shootings and hysteria and mental health and, you know, white men and everything else that they tend to be responsible for, but we need to address this major elephant in the room, and can't allow our emotions to blind us to what's going on, not even allow us to have a conversation about it, bro. It's the whole fucking problem.
And when does the white fatigue kick in?
Well, we've been hearing about white. That's the point, right? We've been hearing about it all our lives, about white fatigue, about systemic discrimination. I'm Canadian, right?
Done. That's the problem.
It has been done.
Here.
That's why we've done systemic justice reform that has led to more crime, right? That's the reason for no three-strike policy. That's the reason for cashless bail. That's the reason for catch and release. The reason for it, in the wake of Black Lives Matter, George Floyd riots, Summer of Love, was we're going to reform crime, we're going to reform the justice system, and it's gotten worse everywhere it's been. And then when white people leave those neighborhoods, well, now it's white flight. If they come in, it's gentrification. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of people who are pissed off, and they're not going to sit down and have this conversation and be real about it. And they're going, well, what happens when someone has to keep their mouth shut about everything?
When they leave what neighborhoods? See, when they just quickly say stuff like that, America is largely segregated. New York City is the most diverse city in America. But when you go through New York City, you know where you're going to see who. You know where you're going to see Italians, Chinese, Jamaicans, Haitians. You know where you're going to see different racial groups and different ethnic groups. We have Little Italy. We have Chinatown. We have like Spanish towns. Like, you know, when you go to certain areas, or this is going to be predominantly Hispanic and Latino, this is predominantly white. We know that. So when they leave what neighborhoods, it's white flight. It's not a large amount of them in these neighborhoods. If the neighborhood is predominantly black, it's predominantly black. And you could just look at school data. We got schools that are predominantly black, 90% black, 80% black, or it's 80%, 90% white. What are you talking about? Like, the gentrification part is when you come into a community and you fix certain things up, but then the price also increases with it. And then people can't afford to live there, people who have been there for decades.
Nobody tell you have to keep
That's how they feel. That's how they feel.
I don't believe white people have to keep their mouth shut. I think white people don't speak up about a lot of the things that they do and they perpetuate that affects us negatively. That's the stuff that nobody wants to. That the issues aren't made about those things. You know, I really respect the platform that you have, because you do have open and honest conversations. And I have to say, I don't believe that those numbers about the black people murdering white people are correct. I don't believe those numbers are correct.
What if they are? What if I'm not lying to you?
If you're not, then.
But what if you are?
Then I've been misled, and I've been.
Bingo. Hit the nail on the head. Bingo. Ding, ding, ding.
You shut up.
Ding. But that's why there will never be a solution to this, bro. There will never be a solution to this, man, because we talk in circles. Stevens, he's there trying to get first acknowledgement of the issue. Everybody talk about the same thing and put our brains together to come up with a solution. But no, it's all right, well, that's your issue, then here's our issue. And it's just this. Back and forth. But he answered his own question. That is the one of the biggest pieces of this whole problem is people being misled, being indoctrinated.
He could have easily have proven it. He could have said, all right, I'll put out the data right now. He never did that. He never gave a source and pulled it out and said, this is how, like I said, unless he's talking about based on the percentages of the population in the US, oh, these are this many black people, these are this many white people. It was around, let me read the exact number. 566 killed, 566 blacks killed a white person, and 246 white people killed a black person. So that's 2.3% more. But based on the US population, the percentages is 12 more likely percentage-wise because of the chances of coming across each other, something like that, if he was trying to make that argument. But again, a key factor is ethnicity, and you do have to factor in the majority of the white people, the majority of the Hispanic people, Hispanic or Latinos, in the offender category that categorize themselves as white. 759 of them said they were Hispanic out of the white people, Hispanic or Latino. So that's important to note, because a lot of these Hispanics or Latinos are identifying as white. But he didn't, I have yet to hear a source or the full argument behind the 12 times more likely. Because when you say it that way and it's only 2.3% according to the numbers, like the numbers reflect that, the population, it reflects closer to the population. What am I trying to say? The numbers aren't as severe as he's making it seem, because it's only 2.3%, which you can say, oh, based on the population, that's a lot, 566 to 246. But again, context and all of that stuff is going to matter, because per capita, there are more poor black people. And as I brought up, 25% of these murders take place in the commission of another crime. So that does matter. When people are poor and homeless and struggling and they're out there on drugs and strung out and things like that, and they're looking for ways to get funds, and then they commit a crime, and then, people resist, they fight back, and then a murder takes place. That matters. Again, this data is not convictions. That's number one. Two, black people are the most exonerated for homicide.
Indoctrinated, being brainwashed, victimhood mindset, right? All the things that this particular sect of the black community hate to hear, right?
Isolated from realistic numbers. But I know in this country, from the time that we got here and until now, there's never been hordes of black people that just go out and maraud and menace white people. Interactions happen and things do occur. I'm not saying that they don't, but not by and large in number. We can't be this small a percentage of the overall population and still have the numbers that people try to perpetuate on to us. See, black people do more harm to other black people than we do to other white people.
Well, that's true. That's true.
All right, I'm done with this. The clip is, a few more minutes to go, but I try not to keep you all too long. But I really want to have a sit down with Steve Knight or Steven Crowder. This stuff has to be, discussed, and they need to sit down with someone who could really address, the lies and the things that they try to pull. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, get it out there, share the content, leave a comment so that it gets in the algorithm. Peace.